I'm back! And I'm doing interior detailing and lighting on that Holt Hotel project on Ron's Trains and Things right now. Hi, I'm Ron of Ron's Trains and Things, and if you'd like to see more videos about model railroading tips, tools, and techniques, then be sure and subscribe down below and hit that little bell icon so you can get notified every time I upload a new episode. It's good to be back after a couple weeks off from video making. I spent a week in Houston, Texas, helping to do a little bit of cleanup and recovery work after Hurricane Harvey, and also spent some time at a conference for work. And then, of course, I spent a week catching up from being gone from the 2 previous weeks. But it's been good to be back to doing some model railroading and some video production. And so today I'm going to bring you a third installment in that Holt Hotel scratch build. I'm going to be working on some interior detailing and lighting, and as I do, you're going to begin to see how the whole project is going to come together. You'll want to watch for the 4th and final installment in this series, where I'll be finishing that interior detailing and lighting, putting in window shades and drapes, and then of course showing you how this structure fits into my layout. Before we get to today's project, I want to give you a hint about something very exciting that's going to be coming up on Ron's Trains and Things very soon. Several weeks ago, when I did my 1,000 subscriber contest, I told you that I was going to be hosting a modeling contest this fall. Well, I am excited to tell you that I am collaborating with a couple of other great YouTube channels and some wonderful model railroad folks to bring you that modeling contest in just a few weeks. You're going to want to watch for an announcement video on November 3rd, when I'm going to be telling you all about what this contest is going to entail, what the rules and the details are, and I'm going to be joined by one of those collaborators as we make that contest announcement and get the ball rolling. So I hope you'll be watching for that. I'm very excited about it, and I think many of you are going to be as well. Now let's get on over to the workbench and pick up where we left off on that Holt Hotel kit bash. Now I'm installing window glazing on the windows here on the Holt Hotel, working on the lower main section of the building right at the moment. And there are a lot of different ways of doing window glazing, but I'm just using the acetate glazing that comes with the kit. There are some other methods that you can use that make some very, very nice window glazing that's very delicate and it looks fantastic. But on this structure, it's going to be on the upper deck and back against the backdrop. So I think this acetate simply glued to the inside of the structure is going to work fine. Now, I'm going to be putting floors in this building, and so I want to get the acetate window glazing over the windows, but I want to leave room for the floors to fit in up against the actual model back, not against the glazing itself. So I'm cutting them narrow enough as to leave room for those floors to fit, in between the different stories of the building. And literally, what I'm doing, rather than measuring, is I'm just marking the actual window glazing itself. I'm coming up here and I'll just take a piece of the acetate and I'll lay it right in place, making sure that one edge is right along where I want it to be. Here it is, just about a 1/16 of an inch below the windows. And then I'm going to mark its height. I'm using a Sharpie that marks on acetate real well. I'm going to mark where I want to cut it for the height. And then I also need to cut it for the length. So I'm going to mark it for the length right here. I'm also going to be doing some detailing of some of the interiors of these rooms. And so I'll be making some little shadow boxes for those rooms that I'll be detailing and lighting. And so I want to make sure and cut this window glazing around those areas. And you can see this set of windows right here I have marked out. I'm going to put a shadow box around them, so I want to make sure to leave a gap in the acetate so that the shadow box can get up flush against the back of the structure itself as well. Once I've got the acetate marked, as I do this, I like to put it on this tissue paper. Often the acetate in the kit will come with tissue paper separating them, keeps from getting it scratched. It also helps keep from scratching the acetate from any debris or anything that might be on your cutting mat or whatever whenever you're cutting it. And then I'm going to come in and turn this around this way just because it'll be easier. And I'm going to come in with my square and just going to cut this. You want to use a very sharp hobby knife with acetate It's really easy to kind of wrinkle and mess up acetate if you don't have a good sharp knife. And this is as far as I need to go on this one, so I'm going to cut a nice square cut right there. Just going to score that a couple of times on this one. And then this way for the length, and I can't break it two different directions. So for this one, I'm going to try to cut all the way through. Square in the right spot, and material keeps moving. There we go. Start with light passes and just gradually work your way through it until you get all the way through. I think I am there. And then I could just snap it there where it's scored. You gotta be careful with it with acetate, because sometimes you can actually separate the material if you don't get a good clean break. So you want to be careful about how you break it. Now, to glue this glazing in place, I am using this Deluxe Materials RC Modeler's Craft Glue. This is a canopy glue. It is a glue, it looks a lot like Elmer's glue, I guess, in a way, when you look at it, except it's a lot thicker. But it's very different from Elmer's glue because it doesn't dry hard. It dries clear, but it stays tacky and flexible. So it works really, really good for glazing like this if you're using acetate. The good thing about it is it doesn't cloud the acetate. The CA will cloud your acetate if you get it too close to the window openings themselves and make your windows look unnatural. You also have to be careful about using like a solvent cement, because that can mess up your windows as well. So this canopy glue works about as well as anything that I have tried. When it comes out of the tube, it's pretty thick, so I put it in a little container or on a little piece of plastic, and then I get a toothpick, and I'm just going to get a little bit of it on here and just dab it in place. I'm going to be real careful not to get it right against the edges. It's a little thick. I don't want it to be so thick and close to the edges of the openings that it squeezes out. I want just a little bit in there. It doesn't take a lot of this to hold that little bit of acetate in place. I'm going to put it between all of the windows, and then just up along the edge here, because remember we have a break. That's not actually where my break is. My break is over here. Here I want to get just along the edge, because this is where I have a little break in between this acetate and the next piece, because that's where that shadow box is going to go. And then carefully going to try to get just a little, got way too much on my toothpick there, just a little along this edge. Again, it doesn't take a lot of this. Fortunately, this glue is fairly forgiving, so it's a pretty easy product to work with. This that I have in this tray has been sitting here for a while, so it's starting to get a little bit thick, which is a little bit of a problem, but we're going to work through it. It's going to work okay. Alright, I think that's going to be enough for this. And then I just want to carefully set my acetate in place, start in that corner, make sure my height is good. And we're going to set it in place and just press it down. And that will hold that in place nicely. You can see these windows down here I glued earlier, and the acetate there has dried, or is getting fairly dry anyway. You can see where the acetate, or not the acetate, where the canopy glue is, but it's dried clear. And so that's going to work nicely. So I'm going to finish the window glazing on this. I also have to do the glazing in the upper section here. I've been working for a little bit now on the interior of this main section. As you can see, I've completed the window glazing, and I've been working on putting in the floors to the different stories of the building. As I did on the upper section, I am cutting the floors just a little bit short of coming all the way to the back of the building, and then I used some of this evergreen scale model styrene strip. It's 30 thousandths by 80 thousandths, and I put a couple of those strips along the sides here, and that little gap in between the backs of the floors, and that strip will allow me to slide the back in, so it'll be removable. so I can access the interiors and specifically the lighting. And I wanted to show you, I've got the next one of these floors cut. I'm going to turn this building upside down here so you can see it a little bit better. And I've cut the floor for the next story here. I had reinforced the corner joints of this with some square styrene strip, and so I've cut the corners out, marked them, and cut those around that strip. And now, as you can see, I can just slip this into place in between the stories. I got to kind of get it in between the window glazing. Sorry, I got my head in the way there. And it just fits into place just like that. And then I'm gluing these in solid with solvent cement, and I'll come and do that in just a moment. Now I'm actually, as I told you, going to detail and light the interior of this building in a few different places. Certain rooms, on the upper section there's a one set of windows that will be lit, and then on the lower section I've got a set of windows here that are going to be lit. And on this story, in the corner, a set of windows, and then the entrance on the first floor will be lit. And in order to control the light bleed and to keep the lighting into one place, for each one of those spots that I'm lighting, I'm building a little shadow box. And I've made this one here for this section in the corner where this is going to be lit. So it'll be lit in the front and along this side. And you see this shadow box is just going to slip into place there. And inside, of course, this is the top of the shadow box I haven't put on yet, but I'm going to be putting wallpaper on the insides of this. You won't be able to see this real well up on the upper level towards the back, but some wallpaper, and in some of the windows I'm going to put drawn shades that you can see some light through. Others are going to be completely open. I'll probably put a few figures in there. I don't think you'll be able to see well enough to see furniture, so I don't think I'll try to put any furniture. But wallpaper on the walls, some figures, some light, some shades in the windows. And then when I put the top on, I'm going to cut a notch in the top that will allow my lighting, my LED wiring to go in. It will also allow me, if I ever needed to remove that LED and replace it if it ever needed to be done. And because I've got it inside of the shadow box, when it fits into place, I'll actually have a double thickness of this 40,000 styrene on the ceiling and the floor, which will help control light bleed and help me keep the lighting where I want it and not in the parts that are supposed to be dark. As I'm continuing to work on the interior detail, those shadow boxes that I showed you earlier, I'm putting in place. You see I've put some little blocks in here for those shadow boxes to slide into, so that when they're in the building, they won't be moving around. They'll just kind of help hold them in place. On the shadow boxes themselves, I'm working on some of the detail. And I want to show you exactly what I'm doing. Here's one of those shadow boxes here. And I went on the internet and just looked at Google images of striped wallpaper. Often hotels will have a striped wallpaper. That's the look that I was going for. And of course, in a hotel, a lot of times the rooms will be uniform. So I'm using the same wallpaper in all of the rooms that I'm detailing and lighting. And so I went and I found this example of just a picture of a wallpaper pattern that's striped that looks generic enough that it might be in a hotel, and I thought that looks pretty good. So I took this and I shrank it down, and in using some editing software, I actually use Microsoft Publisher, and I shrank it down, and then I just put a bunch of them together, just side by side, took all the space out between them, and then printed them out. And these are what I'm using for the wallpaper on these rooms. Literally, as I go and cut them out, when I get a strip like this, I cut it along the bottom to start with, and then I literally just start along one wall and kind of go in and fold it into the corners. Kind of use a toothpick just to kind of push it up and get a crease. I keep it right along the floor, get a little bit of a crease in one corner, and then I hold that in place. I can kind of go do the same in the other corner. Work it around, then I mark the top, and so I can cut the top off. I can cut it to length, and then I'm gluing it in place. And I would probably think that a contact cement, like a spray adhesive, would be ideal for this. Unfortunately, I am out, so I literally have been using just plain old white glue, putting it on very, very thin, putting it on with a toothpick, scraping most of it off, and then actually letting it just begin to dry before I put the wallpaper on, because I don't want the glue, moisture in the glue, to cause the wallpaper to wrinkle. So letting it partially dry to where it's just barely tacky and then putting it on. I also wanted something on the floor just to make it look not so stark white. The ceilings will be white. That's pretty normal. But the floors, I wanted something else. I looked for some brown paper. I didn't have any on hand, but what I did have was some of this parchment type paper. I don't know if you can see. It's got just a little bit of a pattern to it, kind of a marbled look. This is like what you would buy to print resumes or that sort of thing on. And so I've been just cutting squares of it to put into the floors and to serve as a carpet, so it's just not quite so stark white. And then I also, a couple of these rooms, I'm adding some figures. I want to show you here the upper section. You'll see I actually have this little shadow box done. I've got the wallpaper around the outsides. Put the parchment paper in the bottom for the floors. Made a couple of marks right where the windows were in this room, and glued a couple figures in to add some interest, and put them so that they're in front of the window so they can be easily seen. I don't know if you'll be able to tell it very well once this is lit, but I think it's kind of an interesting thing. This husband and wife are in the hotel room. He's standing looking out the window. She's carrying all the bags. So anyway, as you can see here, I've got my little blocks that will hold this in place. That will hold this from moving, and that'll just slide in place. I have the roof cut, but it is removable, so I've taken it out. But this just slides right in there, and I'll have the ceiling on pretty soon. And if you look from the front, I'm not sure if you can get this position just right there. You can see them through the windows. I think they're going to show up pretty well, especially once we get that lit. I've come to the lighting portion of doing the interior of this building, and I'm working with these little shadow boxes that I showed you before. As you can see, this is the shadow box that goes in that corner set of rooms. I've put the top or the ceiling in this shadow box, and then as I'm going to light it, I'm using Woodland Scenics Just Plug lighting system. Now, I have used other methods of lighting structures in the past with, grain of wheat bulbs or even small LEDs, and wire them up with resistors, and that is a great way to go. But I wanted to play with this new system that's out. It has a lot of flexibility, and I really like the fact that with the hub, you can dim these lights, so you can easily control or even change the amount of light that you get out of them. So I'm going to be using this Just Plug system on this structure, and this lights and hub set comes with two warm white LEDs, and then I bought two more, so I would have a total of 4 for this structure. I wanted to be able to access these lights, and if I ever had a problem, ever needed to replace one, I wanted to be able to do that fairly easily. These lights this is the light itself for one of these Just Plug lights that comes wired up, ready to literally plug and play. And on the back, it literally just has some self-adhesive, a peel and stick self-adhesive. So what I did is I took the ceiling section of my shadow box and I cut just a little slot, just enough to be able to slide the light in edgeways and then position it where I want it. Now this one is actually a little bit big. You're going to see this other one that I have cut was the second one I did. I cut it smaller. I can still fit the light through there, and it's going to work great. Now, of course, when you're lighting the interior of a building and you're lighting just portions of it, you are concerned about light bleed. But because these go in between the floors that I already have in place, that gives me a little extra protection against light bleed here. And with the Just Plug system that I can dim, I can control that light bleed, and that's going to work out really, really well. One thing that you do want to do, you'll notice here, this is the front part, what will be the front of the building. You see I've positioned the light a little bit towards the back. That's a really good idea to get it as far as you can away from the exterior wall, because if you get too bright of a light, you can get light bleed through the plastic of the exterior walls, and you definitely don't want that. But with this positioned back from the walls and going to dim them, I think will be fine. If you're not familiar with the Just Plug system, it comes with these lights that I've just shown you. It also comes with this hub where you literally just plug the lights into the top, and you have 4 different plugs and a dimmer for each one. I know that you can go through and modify the wires on these and splice them together so that you can actually run many more than just 4 lights off of one of these, although you'll only have 4 different sets of controls as far as dimming is concerned. You can actually run many more lights off of those. So where this sits on my layout, I will literally have the lighting in this building, the wiring running down through the base, and I'll have this installed up underneath that. Now this is the upper deck, so it'll be up high, kind of hidden by the valance of the upper deck so that you don't see it whenever you're looking at the lower deck. Also, I've gone through here on these floors in the back of this structure, and I've just made some little kind of curved notches to run my wires through. Now, you would think you're going to be able to see those wires through the windows. My plan is to have a view block in all these areas that will keep you from seeing these wires running through here. And I also may take a straw, like a coffee stirring straw. I'll have to split it in half, and I can run the wires inside of that, which would help to hide them as well. So that'll help control the viewability of those wires, and I think that will work out fine. The one drawback to these lights with the Just Plug system, if you don't modify them at all, is that these plugs are rather large. So whereas I could feed this wire through a very small hole or a straw, I have to make sure that I have something large enough for the plug to be able to go through. So you have to take that into consideration. I'll show you how I install the light in this little shadow box. You can see this shadow box is complete. I've got a figure in it. This is the one that's going to go up towards the top of the main part of the structure. I've got my little gap here cut for the light, and so I'm just going to feed it sideways down through this hole, and kind of feed it out towards the front here. Pull it right out here. And now I'm going to peel this peel and stick backing off. And then I'm going to kind of use the wire to help me position it. I'm going to try to do this and let you see it on camera as much as possible, but a little tedious. I'm going to try to get it pretty close to the center of this room. That should be far enough away from the front. And there, it's just about in place, but I'm going to have to reach in there with my finger and stick it to the ceiling. There we go. Careful my figure. And there you can see my light is in place, and this shadow box is ready to go into the building, and we can test it. Now we're going to install a couple of these shadow boxes, and just so you can kind of see how they work and how they look. This one, I've got 2 of them here that have the lighting in place, so I'm just going to slide this one into place here. Be careful to let that wire go down below the floor that's installed there, and it'll run like that. These wires I'll control better later, but you see it'll run in this notch that I have right here. And here is the other room shadow box that I have. It goes in this corner right here, and it'll work kind of the same way. And now, just to give you a sense of how this is going to look, turn it around. I know I don't have the back on the building, but you're going to get the idea here. And I'm going to go ahead and just plug these in. There's 1. And there's 2. And there you can see them lit up already. And I'm going to tilt this up here so you can get a good view. I'm going to adjust the lighting level a little bit. That one room looks like an alien landed. It is so bright. We don't want that. Of course, you can have different brightnesses in different rooms, because a hotel, you might have a different number of lights on in a given room. So Some may be brighter than others. There, you can see how those are lit. This one here looks pretty dim on camera, I think, but in reality, I think the lighting level is pretty good. And I'm actually going to turn off my room lights here and let you have a sense of how this looks in the dark. There. Now, I know the white balance of my camera may wash that out a little bit, but I hope that you can get the sense of the fact that in reality here, those look really, really good. And I don't have a lot of light bleed. May have just a little bit through some of the floors back there, but when I get some view blocks in, which I'm going to put in the areas that are not lit, I think that'll take care of that. I want to finish up today by showing you how the structure goes together. As I've told you, it's kind of works like a puzzle box so that I can access the interior. But I want you to see how it goes together and see how it's looking so far. And we'll come back and finish up that lighting and do the details in the lobby area, and also be adding window shades and curtains in the hopefully the last video in this series. But as you see, I've got my structure here. I've got my lights that I have installed. It's already on there. The back walls of both the lower and upper section I painted just a flat black, just to kind of absorb light. And again, this just fits together kind of like a puzzle box. Okay, there's the rear wall of the exterior section. That's the hardest one to put into place. Then the upper section slides into place above that and helps to hold it in. Then I get the rear wall of the upper section. Goes in the same way as the lower section, only it's a smaller piece, so it's a lot easier to put in place. And then the upper roof slides into place here and holds that together. And there is your first really fairly complete look at the Holt Hotel. There's everything assembled, and I'm going to turn the lights off one more time so you can see those lights in the interior there. And you can see my figure in this room here. Don't have the lights in the room on the top floor yet, but I've got those two figures in the top floor up there also, and you'll see those on the next video. Well, the Holt Hotel is really coming together now, and I'm very excited about how this interior lighting is going to work. If lighting is something that you had wanted to do, but maybe you were intimidated by the electronics of it, then Woodland Scenics Just Plug system may be a great way for you to get started and dive into the world of interior lighting on your model railroad layout. Again, you'll want to join me for the fourth and final installment in this Holt Hotel project, as I'm going to be doing the interior of the first floor lobby. And there will be a lot more detail in that, as well as finishing up the lighting and getting this thing installed on my layout. I'm very excited about it, and I know that you'll enjoy seeing how the project turns out. So be sure to watch for that video coming up very soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Ron's Trains and Things. If you did, give it a thumbs up down below. Let me know. Also, be sure and leave me a comment or a question in the comment section at the bottom of the page. Tell me if you've done interior lighting, if you've used a system like the Just Plug system, if you have worked on the electronics from scratch, or maybe if you've been thinking about doing it but are a little intimidated by it. Maybe some of my other viewers can give you a little encouragement and a little help along the way. If you found this video helpful, I hope you'll share it on your social media or model railroad forums that you might participate in, so others can enjoy this and other episodes of Ron's Trains and Things as well. And of course, be sure and check out my expanded description right down below this video. There you'll find a link to my Patreon page, where you can learn about the rewards and incentives that I offer to those who support my channel on a regular basis. Or maybe you'd like to support the channel with just a one-time gift, and you can do that through my PayPal Me account. That link is also in the description below. And of course, you'll definitely want to check out my Amazon Pick of the Week. It's an affiliate link to a product or two that I found interesting and exciting, and you might as well. And of course, if you choose to purchase that through that link, then a small portion will come back to help support Ron's Strange and Things and keep great model railroad content coming. Well, that's all I have for today, but be sure and watch next week as we'll be bringing you that final installment in the Holt Hotel build, and watch for that contest announcement coming out November 3rd. I hope you'll join me for those exciting videos, and I look forward to seeing you then. Lizzie?